Hey YouTube, welcome to my channel, The Daily Tea. I'm your host, if you couldn't figure it out, Daily. Uh, and I'm up late. I'm still got some energy and buzzing, with the pup. So I'm kind of just in some thoughts and thinking, what haven't I talked about in my journey so far? Some thoughts, feelings, and I feel like one that comes to mind that I really do want to kind of offer my opinion on is trans women, trans feminine people entering women's spaces. Bathrooms, women's only places in the gym, and just kind of like where I'm at with it personally. Don't hate me for what I have to say. I feel like where I'm at now versus where I may be in like 2-3 years on this subject could change. One way or the other. So we'll see, but we'll dive right into it, and just kind of give you my thoughts. So okay, where I'm at, I'm 34 and I am 6'2", about 150 to 165, pretty muscular though lean, just pretty built in certain areas. And yeah, so going into public spaces in general has changed quite a bit for me. There's a certain level of mindfulness that I kind of just have going into any place of like, I really don't want to deal with conflict wherever I go. I'm not worried about too much of, it's like I go back and forth between people's judgment and things, but mostly I'm at a pretty good place where people's judgment doesn't really stop me from being me. I'm happy to be in that place. Entering like women's only, like women's bathrooms, entering bathrooms in general, period, for me, maybe this is relatable to some trans folks of the spectrum, unless they're like unisex, like non-gendered bathrooms. I'm not really a fan of going to the bathroom in public. I have not tried to go into a women's locker room. Like, I very much identify as a trans woman, trans feminine, but I'm not like, yeah, I'm still working with the shadow. Like, I'm pretty sure, just like most people that I'm gonna come up against, they're gonna clock me as a dude, and they're gonna look at me with some level of whoa, whether it's coming out of a men's bathroom or a women's at this point. I go out in public more often now, dressing and presenting how I ultimately feel within, and trying to work into embodying a little more. It's a progress. It's there's so much to it, and maybe it's the heteronormative societal fixations and norms that kind of drive some of those like learning points, if you will. But there's also very much the adaptation to changing emotions, that you both feel in your body as well as you kind of experience here and here. Like, so one of the cool things about science, right? The heart has a whole neural network just as complex as the one in our brain, and it works independently of it. There's, communication, of course, where like you feel things in, like almost in your chest, like literally physically, but you also experience like the whole thought process up here, and sometimes they overlap, sometimes they're like totally different. You're telling yourself it's okay, but you really don't feel okay. That's the thing. um wow, totally ADD off topic, but um so like, yeah, you've I'm going through like all these different things and experiences on like this layered levels of things. um and like going out into public, yeah, I really don't want to deal with the confrontation, just period. Like, it's not that I'm looking or care about what people think, but don't I don't care what you think. So I don't want to deal with you blasting it in my face any more than I'm trying to like shove it down your throat. I'm just being me. La da da, mind your fucking P's and Q's. Excuse my French. Anyways, um but all right, so going into a women's restroom, like I'm not there yet. Like, I don't think that without kind of a buddy system in that sense, having like a cis, woman or something, that just that buddy system. I don't know. Like, again, how I might feel about this down the road may differ, but where I'm at in my experience, I want the invitation, and I want it to come from an actual woman that feels comfortable with bringing me into that space, and that has not happened for me yet. Um, Maybe it won't. Maybe it will. But just as much as I don't want that experience, I don't want to create that experience for someone else. I don't know what level of trauma somebody else has experienced in a bathroom situation. Like, sure, you get the media portrayal of this experience, but this happens in real life with just regular dudes. So, like, to have the possibility that, someone's trying to like pull some weird stuff, like that, it, bathrooms should never be a place where you worry about that. Like, what is wrong with people? um I digress, but like, seriously, that just like, that's disgusting on like the utmost level. It's a bathroom. Like, that's like church. You just don't violate certain spaces. Like, where you're at your most vulnerable. Like, what's wrong with you? To all whoever that takes advantage of people in those spaces. Like, anyways, if there were less of them in the world, I would certainly be happier. Because for people that are just genuinely trying to use the space as it's intended, like, it shouldn't come up as a point of conflict to enter space, use it as intended, and go. I think a lot of trans people can maybe relate to this experience, at least from the trans woman, trans feminine, where like, just the bathroom is a very contentious space in a public setting. At least in the beginning of the journey, maybe, does that improve over time? When did you finally feel comfortable enough to walk into that space for yourself? Um, were you invited first, or did you just decide, I'm doing it. Come hell or high water. I'd love to hear the stories and just kind of get other people's take. Um, in gyms, I totally feel like trans women should be allowed in those spaces. Just because we're not typically there to compete with you or to steal your space. Like, we also want a space where we're not stared at and sexualized by dudes. And I'm beginning to like understand this on a more personal level more recently, with kind of my previous video about fitness. I was like, it's a different experience now, and I'm just going in plain white tee, sweats. Like, I'm not trying to be super pretty. I got my nails done. Okay, sure. Yeah, I guess I have a glow about me. Hair done. Ooh, like, but I'm like in the all around sense of things. Like, I'm not going out of my way to be noticed in that experience, and I notice that I'm noticed. Like, it's different. It's different. It's not like everyone's staring at me, but there's definitely a lot more. And some of it's like in my face, like they're looking at me, and they're, whatever's going on in their brain. And then there's like the more like glance, and they just kind of keep migrating over, and you see it in the peripherals. Um, that's fine, whatever. But there are moments of kind of like that mild uncomfortability, like, I guess as my emotions are like changing and my awareness of my surroundings kind of is changing in with it. Like, yeah, just my response to that is kind of molding a little bit. Yeah, so having a space where I could just like do what I came there to do, work out and leave. Um, I can definitely understand and kind of relate to that experience of just wanting a nice quiet space where no one's looking at me all funny and weird. And so to the women out there that kind of feel like we're trying to steal that from you, no. Um, we're probably honestly going through a lot of the same experiences you are, whether you agree with that statement or not. Emotionally, mentally, and we're experiencing it for the first time at a much later point in our life. And of course, sure, we chose this, path for ourselves, but there's kind of this weird cross point of like, yeah, sure, we made the choices to go on hormones, blah, blah, blah. Like, we had to kind of take a step by step process to, get where we're at in having these experiences. But the part where it's not a choice is that, like, internally we've felt like this person all along, and just unfortunately kind of, biologically is what it is, right? But I wonder scientifically if there's a little more to it. There's a lot more research coming in and around development of, brain and body, and differences with that. And it is backed, and we're just getting started. um I'm gonna say it again because I love this quote. Carl Sagan, I only know 1 trillionth of a trillion things to know. And that's a really smart man, by the way, Carl Sagan. Look him up. You might enjoy a lot of what this man has to say. And it just really highlights like we don't know squat, and like what we know now versus what we knew 20, 30 years ago, 100 years ago, like, and even 50 years from now, what we'll know then versus what we understand in this present moment. It's gonna look totally different, and we're just gonna be deeper in it. If the world lasts that long, who knows? We might just blow each other to bits. But I'm crossing fingers for progress. So hope with me. But yeah, definitely for the women out there that disagree with this experience. Really, whether you disagree with it or not, it doesn't change the actuality. And while, yeah, you've been going through it your whole lives, maybe that's all the more reason why you could take a moment to just consider that, like, oh, this person struggled with a completely different identity, and then they chose this identity that they're now also struggling with. Um, Maybe have a little compassion in that moment. I don't know. World could use a lot more love, uh, especially from women. Women are magical in that sense. When you know how to love fully without those, walls of bigotry, like light up a room, electrify it. I think that's one of the beautiful things about the feminine, is how much that sparkle and shine can really light up a space. And we should be able to share that and show how to share that with others, so that they can kind of sparkle and shine in their own way. I don't know. Sappy, hopeless romantic over here or something. Anyways, I'll get off the tube for now. I hope you enjoyed it. Till next time.